Okay, I'll try to keep this within the camera's range here. To start with, I'm going to approach this as it's a simple belt replacement. I got my kit here, unpackaged it, and I see some things I'm not terribly happy about. While the lengths of the belts seem to be about right, the gauge of them is different. It's clear where they go. There's 4 belts over here. It's pretty clear where they go, but I'm a little puzzled why they would. There's one belt down in here associated with the reels. That's a mid-gauge, but this one they supplied as a replacement is quite thin. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but we'll play with it. It does need some repairs with the belts. Excuse me. This flat one that drives the flywheel, that one it's bagged out. It does work, but if I stop the motor and turn the flywheel, it barely grips at all. I think it's just stretched out. It feels, pliable enough. It does show some visible signs of wear. Usually what happens with these is they just dry out and they lose their grip, especially around the smaller pulleys. Yeah, even this one I can feel it's a little dry. Sometimes these belts can be refurbished a little. I've tried various and sundry remedies for that. Belt dressings. You can buy these little solvent kits from the store. Also use brake fluid. Don't soak the belt in brake fluid overnight. Trust me, you will regret it. But a thin coating of brake fluid, which has components in it that revitalize rubber to keep the seals working in the auto, it can help. If the belt is stretched out, it won't, but if it's just dry on its surface and is failing to grip the pulleys, it can help. It makes the outer surface a bit more sticky, like it needs to be. But always a caution with that. Usually when the time the belts get to the point where they're slipping or causing troubles, just replace it if you can. So, getting at the belt. So, start up top. This belt. This one's working. The load on it is counter. Hardly anything. It is very thin belt, and it feels, by my touch, a little loose. Probably work for a while longer, but you can see it's kind of loose. So I'll pull that off. There he is. I'll move the matter away. So which one of these belts replaces this? This one. It's a bit more stout, a heavier gauge, and it's a smaller diameter. It fits inside, which is good. I would tend to think the older one is still got a lot of elasticity to it, but it's stretched out to the point where it's a bit loose. So put it aside, keep it, because you might have to go back. Don't break it, don't throw it away, don't let the cat get it. And because you might have to go back if for some reason the new belts do not work out, and that has happened many times. I have a collection of these belts I've kept over the years. It's basically useless as they deteriorate over those years. Okay, so got the belt on there, and you have to be mindful. These square belts, it's very easy to get them on where they're twisted some. Usually, once things are running, it fixes itself, but don't count on that. Just make a visual inspection when you put the belt on to see that it is not twisted. It might save you some grief. And now, oh yeah, that's much tighter. You see now, I'm poking at this one and it's not moving this one. So it's much more taut as it should be. As I said, the other one did work, but, you know, iffy. So, you know, if that belt is stretched out and kind of loopy, the other ones are likely as well. It's interesting on this one, they've got this mop here. Just a piece of, like, I don't know, fibrous material, like a brush. Presumably to knock dust off of the belt. I see these once in a while. I'm not sure why they put it here, but they don't put it in something like that anywhere else. Not sure what that is. So anyway, that's that belt. What's underneath belts? Alright, this one here. This drives the take-up reel. This is a clutch. And while you're at it, you want to make sure that you can stop this piece from moving and still turn the pulley. That's how that's supposed to work. Okay, usually what happens with these is they slip so much that the take-up reel doesn't spin at all and it shuts off and there's tape all over the place. But sometimes these get locked up where the take-up reel is locked to this pulley, and that won't work either. But anyway, the belt on this feels to me a little loose. In fact, this is where I was having some troubles. More into that later. But this belt is a little thin for the job. What's interesting is the belt is to replace it is quite a bit thicker, of a higher gauge. So it's possible the belts are in here were replacements, or are replacement belts. I can't know that. And so this may not be the original belt. I've never replaced the belts in this thing. So this belt seems to be a pretty good fit for this. Yeah, it's nice and stiff. This is nowhere near that. And that's kind of what you want, because this thing has to fight this clutch for the take-up reel. That's not exactly a light load on it. But I'm going to take this back off because I got to get other things apart to get this belt replaced. This guy. And we'll see how well that fits. And there's another belt down underneath. So for the time being, we'll set that aside. And so what now? Well, the only way to get this belt out is to pull the flywheel bracket off of it. And since I'm going to get into other things anyway, then we're going to do that. Very simple. 3 small screws. Back them off. I think this one is longer. Yes, and it has some locking hardware on it, so don't forget that. And bag cats. Okay, so this bracket just comes off of here. There's a spring. Oh, be mindful of that spring. You know, this one, this is one that could cause you some grief. If this isn't in place, this spring, take a close look, attaches to this. which is associated with auto shut-off or shut-off. This whole bar here, this plastic bar, that has to be in place. If that spring is missing, you're going to have troubles. It has to be there. So when you pull this off, this might have went. If it did, you can replace it with some like spring. It's, you know, but do be mindful of that. I actually forgot about it and might have ended up shooting it across the room myself. That's why we call these all dang-its. So, with that flywheel retaining bracket removed, it's, you know, the belt just pops right off. Now I want to examine this a little bit more. What's that? What's the? See, that's awful slippery. I mean, I can see why how it would work, but I'm barely putting any force on this motor pulley here, and it slips crazy. Keep in mind, this belt not only powers the capstan against the pinch roll, it drives these cams. There are two of them that switch all of the various functions. You can see one cam up here, and there's another down here. These teeth on these plastic cams engage with teeth on this flywheel. So if this belt slips, we'll be tied you, because it's not going to work right at all. It might work, it turns the tape okay, but when you try to engage the drive neck functions, it's going to holler at you, and it's not going to work. So, replacing this belt. Yeah, very, very slippery. I'm barely touching that motor pulley, and yeah. So, pull the old one off, set him aside. Here's the new one, and put him on. I can tell already. That's. Make sure you get it down onto the proper. This is a flat belt, and so centering is achieved by a slight crown on this pulley. You've got to be careful not to get it up on the interface between the top of the pulley and the bottom. That'll mess you up big time. It'll run, it'll work, but it'll be at the wrong speed because the diameter of that separation between these, there's actually two pulleys here. Or you can get it down like that. You also don't want it. You've got to be careful and don't have a twist in the belt. It's not that difficult to manage once you get it in place and you give it some spins. And belt's nice and flat, no twists. It's not up on one of these edges. And it's grippy. Real grippy. So that belt's going to work much better than the one I just pulled out. But I'm going to take it off for now, because there's another one down here. And the only way to get to that is to pull the flywheel. Now, you'll notice, maybe if you can see it, that belt is around the flywheel. So it has to come off here, and the flywheel comes out. Close attention. I'm going to set this aside. This gear cast into this flywheel. It's interesting. They took the trouble to balance the thing. And this gear engages these two cams. Tito, pay close attention to these. It really doesn't matter a lot when you put this back together where these are sitting. The mechanism tends to work itself out. A couple of things you might want to pay attention to. This cam up here, or this cam follower, I'm sorry, should rest upon the outside of this cam surface out here. I may get into which cam does what later. Likewise this one. Now you can move this stuff around. When you put it back together and you get things rolling, it should fall into place. It's the way it was designed. Make sure that on these cams there are, like, let's see, this one, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teeth on this gear cam that extend beyond this little cutaway. Not sure why they put that there. I have an idea why, but I don't want to get into it. That could break off. If that does, the cam's finished. This one has a similar cutaway in it. And there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so teeth about that part of this cam. If that breaks away, that could be a trouble. And keep in mind, this cam follower should be on the outside edge of this raised bit here. There's a nub here for some reason. Not sure what that does. And same thing here. This cam follows on the outside of a raised portion here. See that that's all intact, and that all of these cams are spring loaded. There should be springs pulling things toward or away from something. This one is. So whatever position these are in, from my experience with these things, it will work itself out once you get the operating gear in place, which engages these two. Now, right now, you know these only have teeth around a part of it. So something you do causes these cams to turn just enough to engage this. They complete their turn and move the armatures, or the cam followers, to where they need to be. Right now, it looks like this one wants to engage, or I can put it there where it won't. And this was in neutral. That is, there are no teeth presented to this. So let's stick this back in there, give it a spin. Yeah, see, nothing happens. Well, let me push a button or something. Oh, okay. I don't even know. I think that's play. But you can see as I push this button, that cam is turning. And to other operations of other mechanisms, it kicked it out. It finished whatever it was doing. Like that. Oh yeah, and I had mentioned in the previous video, you do have to watch this little dust covering washer. I recommend you stick it right where you can't miss it. Don't forget it. It's important. That washer, once you put the flywheel back in, that washer goes down over the capstan above its bearing here. So, with this, the only thing I need to do with it is replace the belts. But as it is, there are other folks having some grief with these. I think it might be worthwhile to point out some stuff, explore a little bit more. One thing is missing springs. I've pointed out one that if it's missing, it's going to cause you grief. They're there for a reason. There's one here, and this has to do with the brake and auto stop mechanism. And you might have been messing with this if you had similar troubles with this that I have had. Here and here, those are brakes. They're just rubber padded part of this plate underneath that rub up against these reels, take up in the supply reels, to stop them from drifting, moving, loosening the tape and so forth. So notice that this this plate here moves that. So it applies the brakes or releases the brakes. When you hit pause, you don't pay attention to this because it might be very much related to the trouble you were having. There needs to be a spring here to pull this back. Not hard, but to keep it in line. When you push pause, there's a bit here that pushes on another spring, which is wound around this. Pushes on that, right here. Which tends to drive this arm that way, down here, that way. Pivots on this post right here. When I push pause, part of the pause armature pushes on this spring, like that, and it locks. There's the locking mechanism for the pause button oh, now it's buried up in here. Actually, I think it's on top. Oh, there it is, right there. The locking mechanism for the pause, push on, push off. You see the position of this. I hope you can see. Push on, push off. Like a Petric switch, shadow switch. Well, but anyway, when the pause is on, through this here in this little white nylon piece in the contact with this metal, that's what disables the auto stop, so that while it's in pause, the auto stop mechanism doesn't say, hey, the take-up reel ain't turning, we need to stop. Otherwise it'll spill tape all inside the machine. So that I'm pretty sure is what's responsible for disabling the auto stop during pause. But it seems like it was not happening here. Might have had more to do with what's going on under here. These auto stop mechanisms are, well, let's just call them nefarious. They are, and rightly so, they're meant to keep you from spoiling your tapes. If they sense that this take-up reel is not turning, and other things are, it's going to cut it off. Rightly so. But they can be troublesome. And apparently with this particular mechanism, drive, they are. But if you're having trouble with the thing auto cutting off, take a look. Make sure this spring is there, this spring is there, that spring is there. All of them, and hopefully this serving as an example, if you can see it clearly enough, of what is present and what's not. So I think I'm going to suspend this a bit. As far as a belt replacement, it's very simple. You do have to pull the flywheel out. Be mindful of the little washer that's got to go on top. String the belts on. It's not too, with this model, it's not too difficult to tell where they go because of their relative size. They're all different sizes, diameters wise. I think I am going to pull this out and explore that a little bit. But take a look. If you're working on these, you've got to hit the spring there. There's one there. There's one there. Another here. Another here. Another here. I think there'd be one for the. Yep, there's one down in here for the solenoid armature. Make sure that's free to move. One here. There. So if you're looking around and one of these seems to be missing, it could be your trouble. And if anybody, technician or novice handyman or whoever's been in there, these things can have a way of getting away from you. Springs and these E-clips, man, there's a reason why we call them all dammits. I think, is there anything else right now? Nope. So I'm going to take a break. Think about this a little bit more. If anything else I'm missing that might be of help to someone trying to repair one of these, and include that. But I believe I am going to do what I did before to repair other things, pull this assembly out, have a look under the hood, and see if anything leaps out for folks that are having some grief with these things. So